In the previous section, we have learned how to display data to users. But simply displaying static data is rarely sufficient to make an app interesting. We need to allow the user to interact with the interface, and our logic must react to those actions. We've seen in the previous sections that apps and controllers are built with one part in the HTML and one part in the JavaScript controller. So the first video will be about preparing the template, while the second is about the JavaScript logic. We will then learn how to read user input from the template, and finally, add some user experience touch by conditionally hiding or showing elements. As an example, we're going to build a form for users to add movies, including some validations. In this first video, we will focus on preparing the template. As with controllers and app definition, interactions need to be defined in both the template and the controller. Starting from the template is actually a good habit while you are learning Angular. It helps you clearly define what you are trying to achieve and what you actually need to achieve that goal. So let's open index.html as before. And here I have added a form with inputs and an add button. The first thing for a form is to be able to read the values that users have typed or selected in a select list. Let's start with the title input. To be able to read the value that the user have typed, we need to add an attribute on this input element called ng-model. Now all these ng-bind that we've seen in the last video, ng-model now, and we will see many more of those, are called directives in Angular. They are basically signals to Angular that it needs to apply a certain behavior to this DOM element. So to use ng-model, we need to type ng-model as the attribute and then equals the name of the variable as it will be referred to on the JavaScript side. This tells Angular that anything that is typed in this input can be accessed on the scope variable in JavaScript using the variable name new_movie_title. The ng-model directive works on inputs, but also on select lists, checkboxes, radio buttons, and text areas. Basically on any HTML element that represent a user value. So let's put ng-models on the other input, on the select list here and on the text area. So by putting all these ng-models, we ensure that when we click on the add button, we will be able to tell which value has been typed as a title, which category has been selected, and which description has been input by the user. We also have a button there that says add. And of course, when we click on it, we expect a new movie entry to be added to the list. Since we need to react on click, let's add an ng-click directive on the button and the corresponding function that we will call add_movie. Now this is a function that will get called on click, so let's add the brackets. This tells Angular, when I click, please call this function add_movie, which will be defined on the JavaScript side on the $scope variable. Let's add more functionalities so we can introduce more directives. On the title field, we're going to validate the value as we type. So on the input, let's add ng-keyup and a function that will be called on-keyup, let's say validate title. As a side note, Angular has a very powerful form handling directive, which you will learn to use as you become more proficient with Angular. So what we are doing right now as validation is really just for learning purposes. Now on the select list, let's check that a category has been selected on change. So as you can guess, we will add an ng-change, and the value for that will be, let's say, check category selected as the function. When we change the value of the select list, this function will be called. Finally, on the text area, let's check the value on blur, not while we are typing. So let's add ng-blur equals check description. When we code the logic, we'll decide what happens on blur here. And we're done with preparing the template. Now let's have a look again at that HTML file and appreciate how Angular, because of its declarative nature, makes your whole game plan very clear and obvious. We immediately can tell which elements have which purpose or task, which input corresponds to the new movie title, what happens when we click on the button, what validation is called while we type on the title input, etc. Imagine even another developer looking at this would also understand it very easily. Everything is very clear and clearly defined. This is why starting from the template is a great idea, especially as you learn and discover Angular. It helps you write down everything you will need and then only focus on the corresponding logic. Talking of the logic, let's get ready to code the controller side of things in the next video.